Welcome to Shavach Shav on the Daf. Shir sponsor Luinish Basar Biakashom Neabas Yitzchok. We're holding over the Zara Daf Ayin Aleph. The Gemara Mudal says that a Meimar learns that Meshicha Borit Kechovim Koina. Meshicha does work by a guy. What is this raya? Teida that Nahane Parsoy. Look at these Persians. Meshabje Pardashli Adade V'Lo Hadjibu. They give to each other, according to Rashi, second shot, they sell to each other and they do a Meshicha and they don't go back. That means they rely on Meshicha. Says Tosis, this is not the main reason because they were just rely on Meshicha, they don't go back. But the reason is because he holds that by Yisrael, the Kinyan has to be done with money. And because we learn in the Gemara in Bechayros, the Amitechel, when you learn buy from a Jew, it's a different Kinyan than you buy from a Goy. So if a Jew is koideh with money, a guy is koideh with Meshicha. Rav Shlomo Kluger in the Sefer Avoda over here, he says maybe not. Maybe the raya that our Meimer is bringing from the Persians is actually from the fact that they are relying on it and they're not changing their mind. Why is that so? So it says the Avoda, there's a concept which is called Minhag HaTagarim, where the Minhag HaMedina is, what people agree upon to do a Kinyan. That Kinyan works. Rav Shlomo Kluger understands that that's the same thing by a guy as well. And it's all based on the idea that the Iker Inyan of Kinyan, says Rav Shlomo Kluger, Kinyan is not that I'm doing a Maaseh. Kinyan is the Haskama, is the Gemirus Das, is the fact that we have an agreement that one will give to the other. Just the Kinyan is, in order to make it outside of Dvarim Shebalev, it should not be something which is in his heart. So you say, you make a Kinyan. So as long as there's agreement between the buyer and seller that this Kinyan should work, so it works because you have here Gemirus Das. So Yemele says, this is what the raya of a Meimer is. Meimer says, Meshichas Koina. Now it could be Meshichas Koina, Minatoyra Meshichas Koina. But the fact that you see that two people, a buyer and seller, doing a purchase, and they don't change their mind, so even if it doesn't work Minatoyra, it's working because of Askama. You see that they agree, so Meshicha for sure works by a guy. And the emphasis that this concept that Avoda says is brought down in Tshuvas HaRashba, HaMiyuchasos LaRamban, meaning it was the Tshuvas that they thought that Ramban wrote, but then they found out really the Rashba wrote it, and it's a Siman Reish Chof Hei. And that's how he explains our Gemara, and he compares it to what we have in the Gemara B'Metzia. Hai Stumto Kanya. Stumto means something that everybody agrees this is going to work. And the Rashba goes on to explain the Hemshech of Gemara. The Gemara says that maybe it's Remois Rucho Nokit Lehu, meaning that it's just a gaiva, which means they really did not agree to do the Kinyan. Really, they could change their mind, but it's not passed for them to do it this way. But it's not a real Kinyan. But the raya that we bring over here is the idea that the Kinyan works because it's an agreement. So it comes out according to this, that anything which is agreed upon the merchants, even though they're not Jewish, it's good enough to be a Kinyan. And this is a discussion in the Magen Avraham and Siman Taf Mem Chesif Kontan Daled regarding Mechiras Chametz. When you have to sell a chametz to a guy, which Kinyan to use? So Magen Avraham brings the Masas Binyamin, who says that any agreement between the Seicherim is good enough to be a Kinyan from Mechiras Chametz. So Magen Avraham himself argues, and he brings a raya from Tosis and our Sugya. What is the raya from Tosis and our Sugya? Says the Chasam Sofer there in Haggadah Shulchan Aruch. Why didn't Tosis say that a Meimer's raya is the fact that people agree to do the Kinyan Meshicha and they don't change their mind? Why does Tosis have to say that it's Lav Davka, but really which we're relying on their Raisa? So from here you have a raya that Tosis holds that you cannot just rely on the minhag of the Seichim if they're not Jewish. You need to have a source with their Raisa. And then the Chasam there says, look at the Tshuvas, he says the Tshuvas Ramban, which we know now as Tshuvas HaRashba, that says otherwise, because he says that you could rely on the minhag of Seichim as we just mentioned. And the Chasam in our Sugya really answers why Tosis didn't rely on it, not like Magen Avraham. He says, Tosis says, because the mashmos of the Gemara and Bechayros is that a Meimer is relying on a pasuk. That's what Tosis has to say, that's Apshai in our Gemara, even though maybe minhag does work. And another Chasam here adds that the reason the Meimer says the idea of the minhag is to say if it will be only a deraisa, it won't be enough. You need to have that the Seichim agreed, they accept it as deraisa. Because if they're not accepting it, there's no Gemirus Das. So a Meimer really is relying on deraisa. But in addition, when Meimer says, look, that actually people are following through with this deraisa, with this Kinyan, because they're not changing their mind. So in Chasam Sofer's mashra, there's no raya of Tosis that he holds to the mig of the Secharim of Goyim does not work. Different than Mugen Avram, that he learns from Taisis, the Minig Socharim does not work, not like the Sherman Kluger. And after to explain a little bit of Pimach Shava, we spoke about in Mesechus Momentio. The Meshicha is not Stam Inyonim. The Meshicha means to take something from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid. To pull something into a auspices of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Because every Rishus HaYochid, the place that Kodesh Baruch Hu belongs, the Rishus HaRabim is considered to be a place of the Chitzonim. So I have shared that without a source with the Raisa, if the Goyim would just agree to do Meshicha cannot work, because Meshicha is too halek, it's above the level of the Goyim to do Meshicha. Anyone who wants to join the Shomach Shava email list, wants to go please email shomachshava@gmail.com.